The first warning humanity ever gave. Humanity detected the anomaly before it had a name, before it had a model, before it had victims. It appeared as a rounding error, a missing whisper of mass in deep interstellar void, far from trade routes and far from anything worth arguing over in the Galactic Concordance. Human astrophysicists flagged it because that's what they did, argue with numbers until the numbers apologized. The anomaly didn't glow, it didn't radiate, it didn't announce itself. It cheated. Human instruments recorded gravity without mass, absence without energy release, effects without causes. That's not a phenomenon, muttered Dr. Sato, staring at the data stream. That's a behavior. Within weeks, human AI cores had spun up entire classes of theoretical entities: vacuum predators, consumption cascades, rule eaters. Structures that did not move through space but redefined it locally until everything else lost the argument. The conclusion was unanimous and deeply uncomfortable. This thing doesn't hate us, it doesn't even notice us. We are just edible. Humanity prepared quietly. Then they did something unusual. They warned everyone else. The advisory packet sent to the Galactic Concordance was exhaustive. Simulations, probabilities, countermeasures, sacrifices spelled out in advance. The final slide read, "If action is delayed past threshold gamma, intervention becomes politically unacceptable, not physically impossible." The Council's response came weeks later, polite, calm, dismissive. The Virelian speaker summarized the consensus perfectly. Humanity exhibits a cultural fixation on worst-case scenarios. This does not constitute an emergency. Humanity archived the response and began planning alone. The Galactic Concordance believed it understood humanity. That belief would kill it. The Grand Chamber of Stars was designed to intimidate, scale without intimacy, grandeur without warmth. The chamber's ceiling projected a live star field, subtly distorted to remind every delegate that the Concordance owned the maps of the galaxy. 87 species were present. Some arrived in person, others manifested as holograms, pheromonal clouds, light matrices, or probability echoes. Each species occupied a platform shaped according to its own sense of dignity. Humanity's platform was unremarkable. A simple ring of alloy, gravity normalized, air breathable. No spectacle, no intimidation. That alone unsettled the Council. Motion 74 Alpha resonated the arbiter of Kelt, its crystalline facets vibrating with harmonic authority. Petition by the human species to expand autonomous industrial capacity beyond Council oversight. Vote will commence. Ambassador Elena Reyes stood with her hands folded behind her back. She did not sit. Humans rarely did in council sessions. Sitting implied waiting. Humans preferred to look ready. "We are requesting permission," Reyes said evenly, "to construct non-militarized, self-sustaining shipyards in inter-arm space, outside Concordance borders, outside protected zones, fully independent." A dozen sensory arrays pivoted toward her. The Earl Collective responded first, their voices clicking in perfect synchronization. "Denied. Your species' growth curve exceeds acceptable stability thresholds." Reyes nodded as if she'd expected that exact phrasing. "We've submitted revised projections accounting for population stabilization." "The projections are irrelevant," replied Ulva, the gas giant symbiote, its voice a slow pressure wave that caused several delegates discomfort. "Your adaptability is the concern. Humans do not remain within projected behaviors." That drew a faint smile from one of the human aides. Reyes ignored it. "Adaptability is why you fast-tracked our membership. Our logistics stabilized 6 collapsing sectors. Our engineering frameworks repaired star lanes you abandoned as lost." Yes, said the Arbiter, and now your presence introduces dependency. That is undesirable. There it was. Fear dressed as governance. Reyes tapped her console. A new projection appeared. Deep space sensor data, layered and annotated. Before we proceed, Reyes said, humanity is formally submitting an advisory notice. The chamber dimmed slightly. Advisory notices were rare. This region, Reyes highlighted, a vast stretch of interstellar void, contains anomalous space-time compression signatures, vacuum shear, mass disappearance without energy release. Several delegates shifted uneasily. We believe, Reyes said calmly, that this indicates a non-baryonic vacuum-borne predatory structure, a consumption cascade. It is not alive in any way you define life, but it behaves. The Arbiter's facets flickered. Your conclusion? It will move, it will feed, and eventually it will intersect concordant space. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Virilian speaker snapped sharply, mandibles flaring. This is speculative alarmism. Humanity has a known tendency towards catastrophic modeling. Reyes didn't flinch. We model catastrophes so they don't happen. Ulva pulsed, displeased. Your proposed countermeasures. They require unrestricted industrial autonomy, rapid deployment of stellar-scale mass projectors, and the willingness to sacrifice systems preemptively. Silence. Then laughter, chemical, musical, mocking. Unacceptable, declared the Arbiter. Your solutions are disproportionate. Your warning is noted and dismissed. Reyes inhaled once. Then humanity submits a countermotion. The chamber stilled. We withdraw from the concordance. That landed harder than any threat. You cannot simply abandon collective security, the Virilian speaker hissed. Reyes finally let steel creep into her voice. We are not abandoning it. We are refusing to be restrained by those unwilling to act. She looked around the chamber. You will not let us prepare. You will not let us act. And when this threat arrives, you will ask us to save us anyway. Her gaze hardened. We decline that future. The human sigil faded from the projection. Humanity left, and the Council congratulated itself for restoring balance. The vote to restrict humanity passed with record efficiency. That, more than the decision itself, unsettled the human delegation. No debate, no hesitation. Fear made efficient. Restrictions piled up quickly. Limits on autonomous manufacturing, bans on stellar-scale engineering, mandatory oversight on AI cores above certain thresholds. Each one targeted a specific human contingency plan. Ambassador Reyes noticed. You didn't just vote against expansion, she said quietly to the Arbiter. You voted against preparation. The Arbiter did not deny it. Your methods frighten lesser species. Reyes nodded. So does fire. That's why you don't outlaw it during winter. The chamber did not appreciate the analogy. When humanity withdrew, several council members privately celebrated. Trade dependencies could be renegotiated, human influence would fade, the galaxy would feel safer. No one asked why humanity did not threaten retaliation. No one asked why their departure was so orderly. No one asked why human space went dark. Not silent, but opaque. Humanity did not slam the door. They sealed it. For the first 18 cycles, nothing catastrophic happened, which the Concordance took as proof of correctness. Trade continued, patrol fleets rotated, the metrics, always the metrics, remained stable. Human influence was exaggerated, announced the Virilian speaker. Redundancy has been restored. What the metrics did not capture were delays. Human logistics networks had been invisible by design. Cargo arrived early. Repairs completed before failure cascaded. Conflicts were resolved because resources appeared exactly where they were needed.
Without humans, everything still worked, just slower. A transit ring destabilized during a solar flare. The automated failover protocols, written by humans, activated, but no one understood them well enough to optimize the response. 6 days later, the ring collapsed. 6,000 dead. The council issued condolences and opened an inquiry. Then a convoy vanished in deep space. Then 2. Navigation charts grew subtly inaccurate. Human updates no longer flowed into shared databases. AI pathfinding degraded without human-trained heuristics. Still, the council insisted this was manageable, until the first star went out. K-Sector 12 did not explode. It did not nova. It simply compressed. Mass vanished into nothing. Gravity smeared outward like a bruise across space-time. Sensors screamed, then went blind. Panic spread. Emergency sessions were convened. "This matches the human advisory," whispered a junior analyst, voice trembling. "Coincidence," snapped the arbiter. "Human paranoia." Then the second system died. And the third. The thing between stars had begun to feed. Panic does strange things to civilizations that believe themselves eternal. The Galactic Concordance had protocols for war, famine, rebellion, and even internal extinction events. It had no protocols for reality itself becoming hostile. Emergency lights bathed the grand chamber in pulsating amber as delegates shouted over one another in a dozen incompatible modes of communication. "This is an act of aggression!" screamed the Virillian speaker. "Identify the enemy!" "There is no enemy," Ova resonated weakly. "There is only consumption." The arbiter of Kelt attempted to reassert control. "Order! Order! The anomaly is now designated an existential hazard. Countermeasures are authorized." Fleet commanders responded instantly. Energy lances fired into empty space. They struck nothing. Gravitic weapons followed, warping space-time in carefully calculated distortions. The anomaly absorbed the distortions like a sponge soaking water. It did not slow, it did not react, it simply continued. Sensors struggled to describe it. It wasn't matter, it wasn't energy, it wasn't even absence in any conventional sense. It was a process, a rule that erased other rules. A senior physicist collapsed mid-report. "This violates conservation laws. It violates causality. It violates our expectations," corrected the arbiter sharply. "Nothing violates physics." From deep archive storage, a human research file was finally pulled, one that had been buried after the withdrawal vote. The title alone caused discomfort. "Vacuum Predation and the Inevitability of Consumption Cascades." The opening line was worse. "This is not a question of if, only when." The countermeasures section was flagged in red. Rejected. 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 Too destructive, too unilateral, too human. One council member finally voiced the thought no one wanted to admit. "We need humanity." Silence followed. Heavy, shameful, undeniable. A subspace message was drafted, then revised, then stripped of authority and posturing until nothing remained but raw need. The Concordance sent its plea. The Galactic Concordance believed it had banned human superweapons. That belief was comforting. It was also wrong. Humanity had complied with every restriction precisely as written. They shut down overt weapons programs. They dismantled visibly aggressive platforms. They allowed inspectors to verify compliance. What they did not do was stop preparing, because humanity did not classify weapons the same way the Concordance did. A human weapon was not always something that fired. Sometimes it was a process. In deep human space, far beyond the reach of Council sensors, stars were being studied, not harvested, not exploited, simply understood to an obsessive degree. Human astrophysics did not ask how to extract energy efficiently. It asked how to move inevitabilities. Human engineers built mass projectors under the classification of infrastructure. After all, what was a stellar stabilizer if not a safety device? What was a space-time lens if not a navigational aid? No one objected. The paperwork was flawless. Human AI cores were restricted from autonomous warfare, so humanity gave them a different problem set entirely. Long-term survival modeling, contingency planning, ethical calculus under extinction conditions. They asked the AIs one question again and again, refining the parameters each time. What must we be willing to lose in order to guarantee survival? The answers were never comforting, but they were always actionable. When the anomaly began consuming concordance space, humanity did not scramble. They updated models. The weapons were already built. They just hadn't been named that yet. The message arrived at the outermost layer of human space. It was logged, categorized, archived. No alarms sounded. Inside a hardened orbital habitat orbiting a dim red star, a human council of a very different kind convened. No grand chamber, no theatrics, just functional space and people who understood exactly how bad things were. A three-dimensional model of the anomaly rotated silently at the center of the room. Director Hale folded his arms. Status? Consumption rate accelerating, said the AI calmly. Concordance space will be functionally extinct within 200 standard years. Human survivability? 87% if isolation protocols remain intact. Someone exhaled slowly. They ignored us. They constrained us, Hale corrected. They voted to make sure we couldn't act. A junior officer hesitated. We could still intervene. The AI answered before Hale could. Probability of success dropped below 5% once the anomaly crossed mass threshold gamma. Hale nodded, which they allowed. The second message arrived, then the third, each more desperate than the last. Humanity did not reply. Instead, observation arrays expanded. Probe swarms slipped into interstellar void, mapping the anomaly's boundaries with exquisite precision. Human megastructures adjusted orbital alignments. Defense shells thickened. Humanity prepared not to save the galaxy, but to endure it. Finally, Hale authorized a response. A single transmission. No threats, no gloating. We warned you. We abstain. Across concordance space, the message was received with devastation. Some species cursed humanity. Others begged. A few finally understood. The anomaly crossed another system boundary. Humanity watched and waited. A handful of minor species, too small to matter, too distant to be courted, reread the advisory packet after the first star vanished. They noticed details the Council had ignored. The margin notes, the contingency branches, the line that chilled them most. Humanity does not require consent to survive. One such species, the Trelkai, attempted to flee concordant space entirely. Their evacuation fleets were denied passage through regulated star lanes. Remain calm, the Council told them. There is no confirmed threat vector. The anomaly consumed their home system 3 cycles later. The survivors recorded one final message, broadcast blindly toward human space. You were right. We should have listened. The message was received, logged, and added to a growing archive titled Lessons. Civilizations do not die screaming. They die arguing. As the anomaly advanced, the Galactic Concordance did what it had always done best, convened committees, issued countermanding orders, and debated jurisdiction while stars vanished. Evacuation votes stalled over quorum disputes. Defense fleets refused to abandon home systems. Species accused one another of hoarding resources, of sabotaging escape routes, of secretly negotiating with humanity. Some of them had tried. None received answers. The Varelian speaker raged in the grand chamber, mandibles cracked and bleeding from stress fractures. They could stop this. They chose not to. Ulva's once mighty resonance had weakened to a ragged vibration. No, they chose not to obey. Entire sectors went dark between sessions. When the anomaly reached the Concordance core worlds, panic turned to something quieter. Despair stripped of illusion. The grand chamber itself began to fail. Structural fields warped as local space-time distorted. Delegates who had never known fear beyond abstraction now felt gravity pull sideways. A final emergency archive was assembled, a confession masquerading as a historical record. We dismissed them. We feared them. We bound the only species willing to act. The last vote of the Galactic Concordance passed unanimously. A message to humanity. Not a demand, not a plea. An admission. We were wrong. It crossed the void and reached human space. The message was read aloud in a quiet human chamber. No one cheered. No one smiled. Director Hale closed his eyes for a long moment. Acknowledged. The anomaly was close now. Close enough that even human predictive models stopped calling it probable and started calling it inevitable. Options, Hale said. The AI replied instantly. We can eliminate it. The room went still. That was not true before, someone said. It was always true, the AI answered. It was merely unacceptable under concordance constraints. Hale leaned forward. Cost. High, the AI said. Localized stellar sacrifice, temporary violation of multiple conservation frameworks, permanent alteration of interstellar topology. Human losses? Minimal. A beat. Non-human? The AI paused, just long enough to matter. The concordance will not survive to observe the outcome. Hale nodded once. Then proceed. Across human space, things began to move that the galaxy had never been allowed to see. Stars were repositioned, not destroyed, not harvested, moved. Human mass projectors, banned, protested, ridiculed, activated in silence. Entire solar outputs were folded inward, compressed into weapons that did not fire so much as decide. The anomaly reached the perimeter and stopped. For the first time since its emergence, it reacted. Space screamed. Humanity struck not at the anomaly's edge, but at its rule, the principle that allowed it to feed, the vacuum structure it depended on. Physics bent, then broke. The anomaly collapsed in on itself, consumed by a logic it had never encountered. Intentional sacrifice for long-term survival. In a single impossible moment, it was gone. No explosion, no debris, just absence. The right kind. Humanity powered down. The anomaly had never encountered resistance. Everything it consumed behaved the same way. Mass failed, energy dispersed, space-time folded inward. The rules always broke in its favor. Until it reached human space. At first, nothing happened. Then the anomaly slowed, not because it was damaged, because the vacuum ahead of it had been preconditioned. Humanity had altered the statistical behavior of empty space itself. Probabilities shifted. Conservation laws were locally rewritten, not violated but reinterpreted. The anomaly pressed forward and encountered something new. Intent. Human mass projectors activated in synchronized silence. No countdowns, no declarations, no broadcasts to be remembered later. Entire stellar outputs were folded, compressed, and aimed not at the anomaly's surface, but at the abstract framework that allowed it to exist. Humanity did not try to overpower it. They starved it. The anomaly reacted for the first time in its existence. Space convulsed. Consumption vectors collapsed inward. The process that had erased civilizations began consuming itself. Human observers noted the change with clinical calm. It's experiencing negative growth, an analyst said. Good, Director Hale replied. Increase pressure. The anomaly folded, then unraveled, then ceased. The universe stabilized around the absence it left behind, a clean wound instead of a spreading one. Humanity powered down the projectors. One star was gone. That had been accounted for centuries ago.
The Galactic Concordance did not fall in a single moment. It ended in fragments. Some species escaped the anomaly's reach by chance, distant colonies, slow-moving arc fleets, research enclaves forgotten by bureaucracy. Others survived because they learned, too late, the one lesson humanity had tried to teach them early. Centralized control is fragile. In the centuries that followed, the ruins of the Concordance became cautionary landmarks, broken ring worlds, cracked council chambers, star lanes that led nowhere. And everywhere, records. Human warnings, time-stamped and precise. Council votes, dismissive and unanimous. No one argued about responsibility anymore. Humanity did not claim territory. They did not arrive as conquerors. They did not rebuild the Concordance. They simply existed, vast, prepared, watching. And that, somehow, was worse. The first species to approach humanity after the fall of the Concordance did not arrive with demands. That alone set them apart. The Kalari were small by galactic standards, fragile bodies, limited population, no significant military capacity. Under the old Council metrics, they had barely qualified for representation. They sent a single vessel. No escort, no weapons charged, no legal preamble. The ship stopped at the edge of human-controlled space and waited. Human sensors tracked it for 3 weeks before anyone bothered to open a channel. "This is a mistake," the Kalari envoy said when the link connected. "We should have come sooner." The human representative did not correct them. "We read your archives, the warnings, the votes, the consequences." A pause. Kalari vocal cords fluttered, their species equivalent of controlled fear. "We are not asking for protection. We are asking for instruction." That earned attention. Humanity did not respond immediately. No promises were made, no treaties offered. Instead, the humans sent data, not technology, principles. Redundancy, decentralization, preparation without permission. The acceptance of loss is the price of survival. The Kalari left without fanfare. They would survive. Not because humanity saved them, but because humanity taught them how not to need saving. New myths formed. Some species claimed humans were cold. Others claimed they were cruel. A few, the ones who studied the records carefully, understood the truth. Humans were not saviors. They were planners. They did not rush to help civilizations that refused to help themselves. They did not bleed for systems that forbade preparation. They did not ask permission to survive. Humanity became something else in the galactic imagination. Not leaders, not gods, the species you do not restrict. Because if humans are preparing, it is already too late to vote. The galaxy did not rebuild a council. Not officially. What emerged instead were consultative clusters, loose networks of species sharing information, not authority. No votes binding survival, no restrictions on preparation. One unspoken rule governed all of them. Do not tell humanity to stop. This was not fear, it was experience. Every surviving archive told the same story. Humanity warned early. Humanity prepared quietly. Humanity acted decisively, but only when action was no longer subject to debate. Attempts were made once to propose oversight. A minor coalition suggested limits on stellar-scale engineering, citing collective safety. The proposal died without human comment. Not because humanity rejected it, because no one supported it. No species wanted to be the one history remembered as second. Millennia later, explorers would find a preserved data vault at the heart of what was once the Grand Chamber of Stars. Inside it, a single human record had been added after the anomaly's destruction. No signatures, no demands, just a statement. You asked us to be smaller so you could feel safer. You asked us to wait so you could feel in control. You asked us to obey so you could avoid responsibility. We warned you. We survived. That message was copied endlessly, not as propaganda, as policy. Humanity never rejoined a council. They never banned others from forming one. They simply made one thing clear through action, not words.
If a civilization tells humanity to stop preparing, humanity will leave. If a civilization ignores a warning, humanity will remember. And if the universe produces another existential horror, something vast, ancient, and hungry, humanity will not ask what the galaxy has voted. They will decide and act. Long after the anomaly had been erased from physics textbooks and fear memory alike, a signal propagated through deep space. It was not a broadcast. It was a marker, embedded into the fabric of interstellar navigation, impossible to miss, impossible to erase. Every species that reached a certain level of technological maturity encountered it eventually. The message was short. We warned them. They voted. We survived. Do not make survival a matter of consensus. No signature followed. It didn't need one.